So as you may or may not have heard, the famous guitars that are made in Mexico are called Paracho, and they're from a small town called Paracho, where there are a ton of luthiers. It is a huge deal there. They are, for the most part, building nylon string instruments, but there's some of everything, and a lot of people go there specifically to buy guitars. That's a thing. So my friend Chris went there, and he went to buy a guitar, and he bought a guitar. So let's check out, let's see what he got. Alright, so this instrument, he visited the shop that was owned by three brothers who had all been taught how to build guitars by their father. And this is one of the instruments from that shop. So it's a nylon string classical guitar, which is what you're going to find most of here in Mexico. It has some really nice kind of vintagey looking tuning keys and beautiful woods. I believe it's Coca-Cola back and sides and a cedar top. It's made by Gerardo Escobedo, constructor de guitarras, in Paracho, Michoacan. And yeah, so this instrument, this guitar is a completely solid top construction. Really rings out. Huge dynamic range. I think this was around $700 US. It's a big, thick, wide neck. I tend to play 3/4 scale and undersized guitars, so this feels humongous to me. But if you're looking for an authentic Paracho, the best way to get that is to go visit. But Paracho is a tiny little town kind of in the middle of nowhere in a state that has had a lot of security issues, and there are people who are going to stop you on the road with machine guns asking for donations. And you know, they're cool and it's probably fine most of the time, but you have to be aware of that. Apparently in Paracho there are shops selling junk, just like there are here in Guanajuato, everywhere. You got these Mercado stalls and they're selling these guitars just hanging up in plastic bags, and those are going to be cheapo guitars from China. Alright, well, here I am at home. It's not tuned, clearly. Nylon string instruments usually have a stretch-in period for the strings, so not surprised that it's not holding tune yet. Played it all of once since I got it. So, initial observations, I think it looks cool. I like this tobacco sort of look to the coloration on the back. And then this one caught my eye because they did the dark coloration to the fingerboard to match the the tail piece. And something that truly perplexes me is when I look at the inside edge of that looks like it's a solid top. Solid top for $35. Solid top guitar. Now, I thought that this would be something that was made in China and imported, but it apparently is actually manufactured in Paracho. See if I can zoom in here. So you can see there, it says that it's actually made in Paracho. So, yeah, color me surprised. My experience with classical guitars is pretty limited, so I'm really not sure what exactly to think about this. I mean, it has a gigantic baseball bat of a neck, but there's no sharp ends to the fretwork, which is on cheap instruments that I'm used to pretty much always have. So that's pretty surprising. Now, there are no position markers, just like on my friend Chris's guitar, which confuses the crap out of me since I've always had them on every guitar I played. Intonation sounds fine. So honestly, it's not at all what I was expecting buying this guitar from the market. I thought it would be a piece of garbage with a plywood top made in China. But once again, it is a humongous neck. Like I've played 12 strings with smaller necks than this. Now I think that's probably par for the course on classical guitars, but if you're someone with small hands, this is probably not going to be a great fit for you. I can play it, but I don't find it comfortable. So the action is high. You can see there at the nut, and then, but with it being nylon string, because the tension is lower on nylon string guitars than on steel string guitars, it doesn't really bother me. These tuning machines are not going to win any quality awards, but honestly I can't tell you how good they are because the strings haven't been stretched in yet, so it's really hard to say how stable they are. I expected this video to be a takedown of the idea of buying one of these guitars, but if you have big enough hands for the giant neck of a classical guitar, this is probably not a bad place to start. If you have smaller hands, or if you're looking for a collector grade instrument, this is not the place to look, but for 35 US dollars, this is far more decent than it should be. My hat's off to the manufacturers at Guitarras Mateo. They're making instruments this good at this price point. They're giving China a run for their money, especially with a solid top. I honestly don't understand how they can even do that. So, but what about the fit and finish, you ask? Well, I haven't exactly been precious with it, but you know, binding is just paint here. You know, I mean, it's $35. Like, what the heck do you want, man? Still got a cool rosette pattern there. See, there is something funny going on there with the nut. It's got a strange little ledge over there on the high E string. If I removed the nut and filed or sanded that little ledge out, it would lower the E string and probably make that side of things more playable. But once again, with it being low tension nylon strings, it doesn't really bother me that much. But you could definitely lower this action really easily if you wanted to. Now here in Guanajuato City, you'll see a lot of musicians out on the streets playing for money. And something that frustrates me to no end is that pretty much every guitarist has a nylon string guitar like this one. But pretty much all of them use picks, and it's just such a harsh sound. I've been playing with just my fingernails, and yes, I know it's not as loud, and when you're a street musician, volume really is a big consideration. But playing a nylon string instrument with pick, it just doesn't sound right when these guys do it. I just keep wanting to just randomly buy them a steel string acoustic and hand it to them and be like, here you go. Just because steel string guitars just sound so much better when strummed with a pick. Should be noted that Chris's guitar came with a nice lightweight rigid case that offers lots of protection. This came with a clear plastic bag that offers no protection of any kind. But for 35 bucks you can pretty much afford any case you want. I just have one of these unpadded gig bags for it. I'm not really concerned about protecting my investment. So did my buddy Chris waste his money spending $700 on a similar guitar? I mean, I don't think the differences between them are enough to justify that much of a price differential. You know, but acoustic instruments are all about sound and feel, and that felt right and sounded right to him, and if he had the money and that's what they were charging. But yeah, classical guitars, not exactly my thing. I prefer small scale guitars. My go-tos are a 3/4 scale acoustic Yamaha and a vintage PVT-15 student electric guitar. Those are the instruments that feel right in my hands. Both have very small necks. The exact opposite of this classical guitar, basically. So while this is not the right instrument for me, it's definitely a decent starting place for somebody who wants to play classical guitar. And for $35, can't really go wrong. So this is Jesse from DIY Music, signing off.